thought-provoking ideas on the subject. I just have two reflections to what you said and to a question someone had asked. In regard to how can we be expected to do all these things? We're not prophets and messengers. I think someone might be reminded that Allah says in the Quran, Allah doesn't place a burden on the believers more than they can bear. Another verse says that Allah makes Islam easy, and Allah wishes to ease, not hardship. So if Allah is asking us to do these things, it's because He knows that we have the capability to do these things. And inshallah, we can encourage each other. The other thing in regards to the promise of Islam being the last messenger, I think, I could be wrong, but these are just some ideas I had, that a possible indication, the reason for this may be two verses. One, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that this day I have perfected for you your religion. So everything has been given to us, and alas, there's no need for anything else after that, inshallah. We had all the information that we need, and we're at a stage in civilization where the Prophet said, between me and the day of judgment, it's like this, two things. Another verse that says, in the Prophet, you have the most beautiful model and example. So in the Prophet Muhammad, we know so much about his example. It is, like you said, as if we had yesterday, as if we all knew him almost. You know, this is a great lesson from Allah. And alhamdulillah for that. And more than any character, even contemporary history, we know of his character and his teaching. So, thank you for allowing me to discuss that.
No, thank you very much.
Thank you. By the way, the verse that you just mentioned, اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم in Surah Al-Ma'idah, today I have perfected your religion. It's one of the proofs of the message of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because he said it before he's dead, before he was dead. And exactly as Ibn Taymiyyah is saying, 81 days after the revelation of this verse, he passed away. And he passed away not by being killed or being a martyr, died naturally, which is a miracle. To tell the people that I already done, perfected your religion, I'm done with my job, and then once he declares to them that, then why he should stay with them no more. In fact, some of the companions of the Prophet predicted that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is not going to stay with them too long after the revelation of this verse. Yes, brother, go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. Brother Jeff, everybody thank you, but now I want to learn from your experience a little bit. We have a second generation here, which is they don't know much of Arabic. But from the last two speeches from you, I felt that you really got to the depths of the verse of Quran. How you transmit yourself, how you move from spoken English to go and read the verse of the Quran and get that deep feeling about it. Did you learn Arabic in depth?
I studied Arabic grammar for a few years, so that helps. You know, when I read a verse, I'll read a person's interpretation, for example, Yusuf Ali's or someone's, and then a certain verse will strike me as being extremely interesting that night. I read something of the Quran every night. I think that's an important thing to do, brothers and sisters. Get in the habit of reading through the Quran again and again and again and again. Every time you do, as you all know, you discover something new every time. And so when I do, I will discover a verse that especially catches my attention, and then I'll go back and analyze it, you know, with the Arabic grammar and whatever knowledge of Arabic I have, which is not extremely extensive, but I have studied it for a few years. Then I will sometimes go to Brother Hamid or others to get more and more help and deeper insight. Sometimes I approach the Quran in a very, this is not, might be for me or against me, but I was trained in mathematics my whole life. And part of mathematics is analytical thinking. And I think I approach the Quran many times in a very analytical way. And maybe nowadays we have to, because we're facing so many problems. But I find that the Quran easily always spiritually impacts me. But in addition to that, I find that I also approach it at times analytically. So in answer to your question, how do I approach the Quran? Most of the time I just read through it, I let it affect me as it will, and then, but on other times when I have a difficult question that I'm trying to tackle, I oftentimes will just approach the Quran in a very sort of simplistic, very analytical, sort of mathematical way, for lack of any better other word. So that's my own personal experience of it.
Do you read it in Arabic first, or you start English?
First, I start reading it through in English, and then when a particular verse catches my interest, or seems to be focusing on a problem that I currently have, or an issue that I'm currently concerned with, then I start to analyze it in Arabic. You see what I?
Do you get that sensation of the words naturally, or through the expression of the word itself?
No, most of the time, the translators, like the modern day translators who are Muslims, their knowledge of Arabic was quite good. So they have pretty good, their translations in general are much better than mine. You know what I mean? Yeah. But still, anybody's translation is really an interpretation of the Quran. So, they might come close to a meaning that, but they can't really, the Arabic is just so much more precise and exact. So, so their interpretations help me to understand what that verse is saying, but I usually have to go deeper in that to get a better appreciation of it. You see what I mean?
In short, your answer is summarized in the verse, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ. Don't you ponder upon the Quran and think about it?
Oh, thank you, Ham. That's true.
Yes, please, sister, go ahead.
I'm also a converted Muslim from Italy. That was my little boy.
Oh, cute guy.
MashaAllah, you got big gangs from Italy now.
Groups of university students, Christian university students. Now, the question that I'm asked the most is, how do you disprove that the Bible is not true? I know what I say, but I would like for you to share with the brothers and sisters now how to prove that point to the Christians, because I feel that it's very, very important. And also, as we talk about the Quran is something that needs to be internalized. That Islam is not just a religion, it's a way of life. And alhamdulillah, please just answer this one question.
Yeah, about proving that the Quran has undergone lots of editing and revision, and the Bible, and that the Bible doesn't contain only verbatim revelation. Usually I don't have to work very hard on that. Actually, I don't get into a very long argument. I just either will tell people, first of all, I could refer them to hundreds of Western studies on this subject. And I could just say, read any of the following scholars, Western scholars, they're non-Muslim scholars. Many of them are committed Christians. Read any of them, see what you think, and come back to me. Because their arguments are much better and much more comprehensive than mine. So the majority of Western scholars of the Bible, except for the evangelical Christians, but the vast majority of Western scholars of the Bible will admit exactly what you just said. So, I think that people will trust a non-Muslim much more than they would trust a Muslim on that subject. So I just merely have to say to them, look, here are a list of 10 Western scholars. Here's a Catholic, here's an Episcopalian, here's someone from the Church of England, here's a Protestant, here's an Eastern Orthodox, and I could just give them the name of these authors, say, go and see what they've written on this account, and then if you still have an argument with me, please come back. I'll be very willing to discuss it. But I'll tell them, I think you need to have the same background I have before we discuss this issue any further. And that's the way I usually begin.
And I guess it might be appropriate to mention the example that you mentioned before of the gemstone and the and the stone and...
Yeah, I normally do not, just to let you brothers and sisters, just to share this with you, I normally try to avoid getting into long arguments about other people's religion. Somehow many of us feel, and not you, sister, but I'm just saying many of us feel, that we have to destroy another person's religion before they could accept Islam. For myself, if you talk to most converts to Islam, they didn't come to Islam because they found that by debating with Muslims, their own religion was defective. Most people come to Islam because they see something superior in Islam. They already know their own religion to some extent, or they know what they know of their religion. But when they start to hear about Islam, they see that there's something superior there. I give this example. Let's say you're talking to a man or a woman, and he's holding a piece of coal in his hand. And you want to convince him that he or she should drop that piece of coal and accept this diamond that you have in your hand, because it's much more valuable, much more beautiful, much more powerful. There's two ways you could proceed. You could hold the diamond behind your back and tell him what a fool he or she is for clinging to that piece of coal, and start pointing out all its defects and all its weaknesses, and never show him the diamond. And that person most likely will grip that coal even tighter and tell you to get lost and take it personally. Or you'd never even have to say anything about the coal. Just hold up the diamond and say, look what I have here, this beautiful diamond. I got this, and look at these qualities, and look at the way it takes the light, and look at its beauty and its shape, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The person is looking at you and looking at the diamond and looking at the diamond, and finally says, where can I get that diamond? And then he'll drop the coal and take the diamond if you just hold it out to him. Sometimes I think this is sort of an analogy of the way we are working in the United States. We're telling people all about the bad qualities about the coal, the characteristics of the coal, and we're not showing them the diamond. So I like to take the opportunity when I have somebody who wants to discuss Islam with me, to discuss Islam. And very often I know the objections, the problems that they already have with their own religion. And so without even mentioning their own religion, I'm able to address those things and never even have to bring up the word Christianity or Judaism or whatever.
But brother, we must admit that we can also tell them that the Bible has been destroyed, rewritten, translated, retranslated.
Right.
The Quran is original form because it has been memorized from
Right.
generation to generation. So in actuality, this is how we can prove Islam.
You're right, but unfortunately I find that many of our...
This works, it's very accurate, it's very logical.
Right, but unfortunately, I've seen many lectures or debates where a Muslim the focus of the debate will be on the Bible. And the Muslim never mentions the Quran. Or just mentions it's perfect, And the problem is that they spend an hour and a half debating around the Bible, and at the end of it, everybody knows all about biblical scholarship and has learned nothing about Islam. I would just rather say, look, Christian scholars have come to this conclusion, by and large, the majority of them. And, if you'd like to read, I like to just let them know where the information is, but focus my attention on Islam. Because, but your point is valid and a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brother Jeffrey, I'm going to ask you the same question that the previous brother asked you, but I don't think I'm satisfied with your answer. I want to get more answers out of you. I read the Quran repeatedly, and I can educate myself, develop my soul, and so forth. But I have teenagers, not just me, but a lot of Muslims have teenagers that were born here, raised here, they're born to a Muslim family. And we have the values, we have the understanding of the Quran.
Good.
But we're trying hard to teach our kids and make them develop the same understanding of the Islamic religion. And yet until now, when I see you, I'm amazed that how you reach that high level of understanding of Islam. You don't tell me that you just learned some Arabic grammar and you did not spend time and went all out of your way to reach for resources, or maybe you got means that we lacking. We have schools, we have books, we have tapes, we're still failing. So please give us your real experience.
Well, wow. My secret is right here. No. No, actually, you're right. It's not just a matter of learning some Arabic grammar. To be completely honest with you, as Brother Hamid said, I am a passionate reader. So I read a lot. I always have. When I have come upon, and the Quran commands us to read, I found that very interesting, the first revelation. But the point I'm trying to make is that, to be honest with you, when I began studying Islam, I really studied hard. I not only kept on reading the Quran daily, but I read anything I could get my hands on about Islam. And the university libraries in America have tons of books about Islam. I was a university professor on campus. I would just go to the section of the library devoted to books on Islam and get one after the next after the next. To nowadays, where if somebody goes to the University of Kansas and pulls a book out about Islam from those thousands of volumes of books, I could usually tell them what the contents of that books are and comment about that book. So I do like to read a lot. I read books by Orientalists. I read books by Muslim authors. I read books of translations of works from Arabic into English. I just read almost anything. I read criticisms of Islam. I read books that are trying to propagate Islam. I read and read and read. What I do with my children, though, and I find that this is very helpful, so that answers your first question. As far as my children go, to try to develop in them the love and appreciation and desire to know more and more about Islam, whenever I read something or find something interesting, I bring it up at home. We'll be sitting at dinner and all of a sudden I'll say, you know what I read today? This really fascinated me. And you know what I find? My children, my daughters, are dying to know. You know, what, Daddy? And then we get into this long discussion. They're kids, they're little girls, they don't understand everything I'm saying, so I have to work very hard to make sense of it to them. But my children love it. Somehow they feel that, oh, Daddy is sharing his life with me. They just, you know how children are. When you love something, they love you, they want to love it too. So the more I talk about Islam at the dinner table or when we're driving in the car or anything like that, they just jump at it. The other day we were talking about Christmas. And I said, you know what I was reading not too long ago about the origins of Christmas? How did that holiday arise? My children said, how did it arise? We got into a talk about Mithraism, the ancient Persian cult, where they believed in three gods and used to use the sign of the cross, and the Mithra god was born on December 25th. All of this predated Christianity by centuries. My daughter said, wow, that's great stuff, Daddy. What about Santa Claus? We got into talk about Santa Claus. The idea of Santa Claus came about. My daughters go to school the next day and start telling their friends about Mithra and all this stuff. And they think it's exciting, Some kids say, why don't you believe in Santa Claus? And my children say, well, actually, Santa Claus is an ancient Germanic belief, and et cetera, The teachers at my children's school say, my God, your kids have such an in-depth appreciation of religion and theology. Because I share it with them. I think as parents we have to share our experience of our religion with our children. All the time. All right. I hope I partially answered your question.
We'll take a last comment from...
If somebody, you also beware of this, just in reference to his question. 16, 18, 19 years old, children are crazy. They have so much going on in their lives, their minds are so absorbed in so many things, they're out of control. But you can, when they're younger than that, and even during that age, you can, like my mother says, the way the tree is bent, the way the twig is bent, the tree will grow. You could provide them with the information and the resources at those younger ages so that when they get to their late 20s and early 30s, when they really start thinking about the meaning of their existence, the purpose of their life, then they will know where to look. That's the most you can do for your children. You have to expect, I think, that they're going to go through the emotional, the radical, the rebellious teenage years. I'm sorry to keep you standing there. But know this also, that when children in America reach their 20s and 30s, they start to want to go back and check out the things they were told when they were children and research them again. They start searching again. Those are the searching years. So don't be discouraged if your children are acting a little bit wacky as teenagers. They very often come back in a big way when they reach their 20s and 30s. Just give them the resources, the information, the places to look, though. Let them know what they are when they're still children.
Well, I'm sorry we have to close, so if you have a comment, you make it quickly, and I would kindly ask you to make your question personally.
Do you have a rebuttal?
And you, if you have a comment, make it. Go ahead, brother.
Okay, a couple of things. The first thing, I'd like to make a compliment. Second, I'd like to address a question to you. One of the compliments I'd like to make, I've heard a lot of speakers, and they tend to scare a lot of the youth in America. And I think we need speakers such as yourself who touch my heart, and I'm sure they touch a lot of the hearts of the youth in America, and will make a big difference in their life in the future. My question is, during your speech, you've said that being a Muslim is part of it has to do with searching for the truth and applying it to your life and then surrender to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's a lot of us who are Muslim. We inherit Islam from our parents. We didn't have the opportunity where we went and searched for it, but we inherit from our parents, and we are Muslim. There's those of us who are bad examples for the Muslims, and there's those of us who have a good heart, but they're lost out there in life. What can we do to those of us who are lost? What can we do to bring them closer? And those of us who are a bad example, what can we do to change that in their life and then also improve the Islamic community?
Can we take the comment from the sister back there?
I want to ask you, what's the best way to introduce Islam to somebody that you just meet and you don't plan to see again? What's the best thought to begin with and the shortest comment you could make?
Can you make your comment, please? Yes, go ahead. Can you get closer to the mic?
I was just going to say that in answer to your question over on this side, I'd say that that's a very big issue. I think we need a whole conference to talk about that. And in answer to your question, I think it depends on the individual. Sometimes some individuals, they're not interested in all. It's probably not necessary to say anything. If someone shows interest or asks a question, I would handle that situation according to that person's personality and the approach that they took with me and I took with them. You see what I mean? It differs from one situation to the next. But most importantly, I would just, if somebody asked me what I was doing or who was I or why am I dressed that way or what do I believe in, I would tell them I'm a Muslim. I believe in, what's a Muslim? Well, I believe in only one God. And, and begin with just a very simple explanation. Let them take the conversation from there.
Thank you. Please make your comment. Please.
Yeah, it's a question to Dr. Lang. About children, bringing up children in this country. One example I can think of is the Uyghur Jews children there, where they're totally, secluded from mainstream. And the other extreme is just, no religion or little religion whatsoever. Is there a formula for us Muslims? Should we be closer to, total seclusion of our kids, or more toward mainstream, or how do you feel about that?
Well, that's a very good question. Should...
No more questions, please. No.
The idea of should we seclude our children from the larger society as much as possible, similar to what many Jewish parents have tried in America, I would say that the Jewish example has shown that fails miserably. There are more atheists among the Jews, more agnostics among the Jews than almost any other religious community in the world. It just hasn't worked. it becomes impractical. It becomes too big a burden. It becomes too hard. People are easily develop doubts and are led astray. By trying to wall the environment out, by trying to keep everything out and just stay within a certain tradition and insulate the community, that community fails to make progress, fails to take into consideration the new questions, the new problems that arise in that day, and becomes less and less in touch with reality. So I would suggest just the opposite. The Muslim community right now in America is in a bind. They're at a critical point. If they are going to succeed, if their children are going to embrace this religion with the same intensity that their parents have, I think as a community we have to be very involved in working with and trying to communicate this message to the greater society. And that we can't hide behind walls. We have to really get out there and meet the people and be unafraid to represent our religion whenever the opportunity arises. So I think that the best defense is sometimes a good offense. Not be offensive, but be proud and in a very respectful way. Let's not shrink from presenting our religion when the opportunity arises. One example. I was at school, my child's school the other day. The teacher mentioned some sort of policy they had during Christmas or something. And I know many Muslim parents in that situation would just sort of cringe and accept it, or just say they can't, whatever. They would make some excuse without really telling the underlying reason why they are objecting to that and why they won't accept that certain policy. But I thought that'd be, in that sort of situation, I think a Muslim parent say, look, I don't want my child participating in a Christmas play for the following reasons. First, I am a Muslim, and so are they. Second, we don't believe that Jesus is God. We don't believe he is the Son of God. We don't believe he is a man God. Third, we find this extremely offensive to our religious beliefs. We worship one God, and this is completely contrary to that, to our beliefs. So I'd appreciate it if you wouldn't insist on my daughter being in the play, and I'm sure you'll accept and respect my wishes. And the teachers, the principals, was very respectful and appreciative. I'm so glad you brought that to our attention. And he said, I certainly won't do that, and we'll think of some alternative for your children. And they went out of their way. And then he asked me for a copy of my book, Struggling to Surrender. So, he wants to know more. He has Muslim children, he wants to know more. But, by us just simply keeping our children out of school that day, or making an excuse, or not confronting the issue, I think we're doing a disservice to ourselves and our community. We can't be hiding behind the walls from now on.
Thank you, Dr. Jeffrey. Sorry for the brother running out of time. Before we conclude, I'd like you to wait until we listen to the announcement, number one. Number two, we have to conclude the Islamic way. So I have to make the dua for the conclusion before you leave. If you need a copy of Dr. Jeffrey's book, I think it's available at the bazaar. If you don't find it, contact me or Sister Amina and we'll provide you with a copy, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر.
Okay, just few minutes. Let me tell you what happened just while Dr. Jeffrey was giving his speech. One of the American employees in this hotel, he came in to fix this for us, and then he stayed there for about 5 minutes. He said, he was staring at Dr. Jeffrey Lang. He said, I thought all Muslims are Arabs. Is he an American? We said yes. Oh, so, and I'd like to share with you, in this hall, we have a brother from France, Abdullah Siraj, a French producer, film producer. We have the sister from Italy. You just talked to her. We have a brother from China. We have a family from what's used to be called Soviet Union. We have a sister from Britain. We have brothers from India, Pakistan, Arabs. So we have them all. This is the real rainbow. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless this Muslim ummah. I'd like to tell you about prayer. Inshallah, we'll start in 10 minutes maximum, because the bus They are holding the buses until 1:30. So one goes upstairs and pray, or downstairs. The next two sessions, the next session will be, inshallah, 3 to 4:30, Islam in the lives of American Muslims. 3 sisters and 1 brother will tell us about their experiences as Muslims. The moderator will be Sister Mu'mina Kowalski. And we're going to have 3 speakers, Sister Kathy Balak, and I hope I pronounce her last name correctly, Sister Amina Silmi, and Brother Jim Kinward. They'll be here, so don't miss it. The other session is 5 to 6:30, is culture or Islamic. We will have 2 prominent speakers, Dr. Jamal Badawi, inshallah, and Dr. Ahmed Al-Qadi. The other announcements is, please do your best, if you can, to keep your little ones in Hyatt, where we have a program for them, babysitters and so on. Do your best. I know it's hard for some of you. The 4th is we have a badge, Fatima Muhammad. This is yours. Please come to the podium. Jazakumullah khair, and see you inshallah at 3 o'clock.